Hello, welcome back to TIS-100. This is a quick follow-up to my previous video about the Signal Pattern Detector. After rewatching my solutions, I connected two dots in my head. I was using the J and Z instruction, jump if not equal to 0, later on in the video. Well, in the beginning of the video, I was doing some very creative things. So, I started off with a main loop. Move up to ACK, and then I did something, jump if it's equal to 0. Then we jump to 1. Otherwise, we jump back to main. And then we have a 1, which did something like move up to ACK, jump if it's equal to 0. Then we go to 2. Otherwise, we jump to main. 2, and then we do this one again, up, ACK, equal to 0, 3, jump to main, and we have number 3, move up to ACK, jump if it's equal to 0. Well, basically I ran out of space at this point, and also there's no emitting of values. But the thing is, I'm using a pattern here to check if it's success. And if not, then basically move here. We skip one line, and otherwise we jump back to main. When I was implementing this, I had completely forgotten about the existence of the jump if it's not equal to 0 instruction. So we can basically shorten this. So, we read the value. If it's not equal to 0, we jump back to main. And this needs to be instruction. And otherwise, move a 0, move it down. So, we will stay in this main loop for as long as the value is not 0. So, the first input here, it's a 2. We can actually just step into it. So we take the value, that's a 2. It gets stored. We check it, it's not 0. So we jump back to main. So as long as this happens, we stay here. Then we get a 0. That means this one doesn't trigger, so we fall through. We emit a value of 0, we emit it down. Actually, I said something about just emitting it before jumping, and that actually makes a lot of sense. Because in this loop we are always stuck with a 0. Here it's always a 0, here, and because we will only emit a 1 once we have a sequence of 3 or more. Basically, if we have a equal to 0, we want to loop back to 3. We need to move up to ACK. And we are really getting squeezed for space here. Also, but we don't need the labels. Haha, we don't need the labels. So this is 1. Let's indent it. This is 2. And this is 3, and we probably need a label. But we got ourselves 2 extra lines that we probably have to use. So, up until this point, we have been building up a sequence. The moment we get here, we have a third value. We need to move a 1 down. Then we reach the value. Yeah. Then we read the value. Actually, no. So this is the thing about trying to do part of the logic in your head while trying to explain it. Not quite sure if this. So we read it, we emit a value. We read it, we emit a value. We read it, we emit a value. And then we suddenly don't emit values anymore. This is where it gets fuzzy. So that's if the pattern sticks, works like this. But I think this is going to be wrong, but let's iterate through it. I think this is going to be off by 1. It starts emitting or 1 too early or too late. Actually, we're already stuck. That's interesting. Oh, of course. We need to transport the value. So we move up, down, move up, right, and we move left, down. Okay, so we pause it. I said something about emitting too early or too late, right? So here we emit a 0 when we should be emitting a 1. That's because we need to emit the 1 before we look at the number. So basically here, or rather there. And this could be wrong on the termination clause. Let's have a look. Okay, so we shifted it. We should have been emitting a 1. We got a 0. Am I going about this entirely wrong? Maybe I do need to emit the value before we actually look at the inputs. So we flip it, and then we send a value down, and we look at it again. Probably not going to be good either. Nope. Still too late. So it's the crazy thing then that if you make it here, we have to emit a 1. That doesn't feel right. No. So now we start emitting it at weird places. Okay, so we have a count of 0 at this point. So we check the value. We have a 0 count. That's always a guarantee. So if we make it over here, then we have a count of 1. We read it. This gives us a count of 2. And we reset if it's not the case. So here we have a count of 3, but we are not quite sure about it. So the last stage, we probably need to fuse them, and that's why it got weird, even though I started shifting things. So let's double check. So this is the second, this is the third value. So the loop is going to stay in here, I think. So we store it if it's jump, if it's equal to 0. Well, actually, if it's equal to 0, emit 1. Let's number this one. Otherwise, so that's emit 1. that's this one. And then we basically do a jump back to 3. This is going to be very, 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 very tight. Otherwise we remove 0 and we fall through, and that's not gonna work. Okay, so we need to reverse our logic. So if it's not 0, emit 0. So we cut this out. We put it in, and this is emit 0, move 0 down, and then we fall through to main, because the thing is I didn't have room for a jump main. So sanity check. Let's see, we just let it run. So it's doing interesting things here. It's emitting zeros the first 2 times of the loop. It should have emitted a 1, so it's too late. How come? Probably because I misplaced something. So this is the part of the debugging, and basically I've made the code less readable to actually make it fit in a single node, and that's now biting me because it's harder to follow the control logic. So we take the value from up, we store it. If we emit a 0 down, we already discard the value and we loop back if it's not 0. Then if it was equal to 0, we end up here, so we have a count of 1. We emit a value for that before we even look at it. That doesn't feel right anymore. So there's something weird over there. So this is basically we check for, we have a count of 0. We make it through, so at this point we have a count of 1. And if it's not 0, we jump back to main to reset it. So at this point we have a count of 2. Let's park it over here. We can just duplicate the logic. We have a count of 2. And we have a count of 3. Okay, so we check. So here we don't need to check because we are at 0. Here we don't need to check before emitting because we have a first count. And this is basically the decision if it's going to be the second or not. So basically this is, we are deciding on the first one. This is deciding on the second one. This is deciding on the third one. I was off by 1. So we don't have certainty. But this is the third value in a row. We cannot afford to instantly emit a value. Here we have to look. And this is the 3 loop, so to say. So here we have our logic again. Yeah, we have the label included, so we can complete it in its entirety. So this is a third value. So if it's not 0, we emit 0 and we loop back to main because we fall through. Otherwise we emit a 1 and we jump back to the 3 loop. Okay, so now the logic is sane again, and it actually seems to work. And look at that. 174 cycles using only 14 instructions. This is the shortest solution I've come up with so far. So my hunch that using the J and Z in a single node, this was actually a better solution than the one I came up with. So yeah, for all those people who were just like me, shouting at the screen almost to when I was doing the first iteration of my first live coding session of this puzzle, to like, use the J and Z, use the J and Z. You were absolutely right. I was with you. Looking at it again, I thought of this. It took a bit to figure out because the logic is kind of convoluted, but the solution is there. So I hope you enjoyed this one as well. And once again, if you managed to get a better solution, what was it? 17414. 17414. If you get a better solution than that, please do let me know in the comments. Because I think this is based on the graph. I'm on the leftmost side of all the graphs. So as far as I have information, this is the best solution that's possible. At least that people have submitted with any statistical significance. Because I think you need to have a few percentage to at least register. But yeah, we'll see. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.